The New York Islanders head into the All-Star break after another overtime loss. We'll break down what happened in the game and what the team needs to improve upon after the break. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your best bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. We have got a lot to discuss on this show as the Islanders head into the All-Star break. But first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, feel free to email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever it is that's on your mind. You could also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all season long, and I am also live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me for some instant insight and analysis, and it's great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. Well, familiar situation, Islanders losing in overtime to the Florida Panthers, this game by a score of 3-2. Alumni weekend, that was pretty great. Good to see so many of the old-timers back and, having the living Hall of Fame old-timers there to ceremoniously drop the puck before the game started, including, I might add, Pat LaFontaine. Great to see that the organization is working toward repairing that often damaged relationship with LaFontaine, and good to see him back taking part in Islanders alumni activities. As for the game itself, first of all, Hudson Fasching out of the lineup, Adam Pelech out of the lineup, and both of those expected. Pelech officially listed as day-to-day with an upper body injury after the dirty headshot by Brendan Gallagher. Gallagher got 5 games. I thought that would have been the minimum. The NHL's Department of Player Safety basically went for a phone hearing, which meant the maximum could be 5 games. I thought that he deserved at least 5, maybe closer to 10, but 5 is what they settled at. And here's what Patrick Waugh had to say about it. Every time you lose a player like Adam, the suspension is no longer important. We're losing a quality player. Adam was playing so well for this team. In the 3 games I've been with him, he was one of our best defensemen. So, again, you lose Pelech. We're not sure for how long, but the one thing we do observe, and we don't know if this is a concussion or, what the circumstances are, but we do know the Islanders did not place Pelech on IR, and the fact that they now have 8 more days before their next game means that the team is at least hoping that they won't have to place Pelech on IR. But again, concussions, if it is a concussion, very tricky thing. We know Pelech has had at least one before. Each subsequent concussion makes you more susceptible to having a more serious injury when you have it. So it really does sort of become a wait and see kind of a thing. Hudson Fasching, lower body injury, also listed as day-to-day. He did not play. And then Julian Gauthier was sat. And in his place was Oliver Wahlstrom. Now, Wally did get an assist in this game. And, here's the thing about Oliver Wahlstrom. He played 10 minutes and 14 seconds, sort of on the low end, although the three members of the fourth line all played a little bit less than he did. This may be Wahlstrom's first and only chance to show what he can do. And again, picking up the assist is great, but the key for Wahlstrom is what does he do without the puck? And that is going to be something that you have to kind of watch. Whether or not he is in the lineup again when they take the ice next Monday in Toronto remains to be seen. But Wahlstrom, as the trade deadline approaches, I get the feeling he is a very likely candidate to be dealt. Now, what his value is at this point, probably not a lot, but we shall see if Lou Lamoriello makes a deal, and if so, whether or not Oliver Wahlstrom is part of it. Overall, for this game, a little bit of a surprise that the team started Semyon Varlamov for back-to-back games rather than Ilya Sorokin. And I think it's an interesting strategy by Patrick Roy. I think the fact that Sorokin played in 14 straight games, that by going with Varley back-to-back, number one, you're giving Varlamov more ice time and more of a chance to get back up to game speed, because let's face it, he missed 2 weeks plus, 3 weeks maybe, and then there's no games coming up this week between the bye week and the All-Star break. So if you're the coach and you want to get Varley sharp, you can put him in for back-to-back games before the All-Star break, and it also extends the rest for your starter, Ilya Sorokin, who badly needs the rest. So I liked the move. Varlamov, 34 saves in the game, did not play badly. No soft goals, really. And the problem remained for the Islanders, really the same old song, a lot of bad penalties, a lot of turnovers, and those mistakes ended up in the back of the net. And again, the Islanders do a good job of working hard and tying the hockey game. They pull the goalie with a minute and a half left. Palmieri ties it. But, again, not enough in that respect, because in overtime, a bad change. And here's the thing. This is what we're seeing over and over again. The Islanders did not play terribly in this game, but didn't get enough offense, only 23 shots on goal. The defensive structure was overall a little bit better, but still gave up 37 shots. Now, again, there was a little bit of overtime and almost 2 minutes to add to it, but 37 shots, still a little too high on that number. And then, again, the mistakes, the giveaways were the big issue. Nelson, Engvall, 2 giveaways each officially. That's too high. And just, again, offensively, it just seems like there's one line that's really going. And if the Horvat, Barzal, Lee line isn't scoring, or Brock Nelson isn't scoring on the power play, they're not going to generate a lot of offense. And that remains an issue. We are seeing some changes under Patrick Roy. The top line playing more. Barzal, 23-42. Horvat, 23-13. Lee, 18 minutes and 51 seconds. And Noah Dobson, 27 minutes, 45 seconds. Alexander Romanov, his usual partner, 26:06. So while a little bit more likely to roll with his top players, than Lambert, who was more looking to give everybody more of a chance. But overall, again, the penalties, the penalty kill has been an absolute disaster. Essentially, what we're seeing is the same problems cropping up again and again for the New York Islanders. And when you here, we've had 4 games with Patrick Waugh, 1, 2, and 1 in those 4 games. But the Islanders still have some work to do to get some of the mistakes that they've made consistently all season out of their system. And I think if you look at the big picture, it's a twofold equation. Number one, the question is, can Patrick Waugh get more out of this roster? Can he clean up some of the recurring mistakes? And it will take time. We've gotten through the first 4 games. Now you've got the All-Star break. I think we will see more and more comfort with the Waugh system and his expectations after the All-Star break. That 4-game feeling out process has now been completed. But then the second question is, and this to me is the more fundamental question, can Lou Lamoriello improve this roster because it is very flawed and needs some work? That's the bigger question, and we'll talk more about that coming up. We have got a lot to get to on today's show. We'll have our hero and go to the game. We'll talk about the January swoon that this team went through, and for our Islanders' birthday of the day, the very first draft pick in Islanders history. Let's see if you can guess who that is. We've got all that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into an MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive with ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. So let's do the hero and GOAT of the game. Hero is, in my mind, I'm going to go with Noah Dobson. He had an amazing assist to set up Kyle Palmieri for the tying goal. He had an assist. As I said, he's a +1, had 4 shots on goal, which, by the way, led the team. And he tied for the team lead with 6 block shots along with Scott Mayfield. So to me, Dobson gets the hero of the game. And, the GOAT of the game, there's a lot of ways you can go with this, but I am sticking with the penalty kill, which has just been absolutely dreadful. They give up 2 power play goals to the Panthers. We know how dangerous Florida is with the extra attacker, and they just did not seem. That first goal, Sam Reinhart, who is by far their most dangerous goal scorer, especially on the power play, and yet nobody's near him when he's in the slot. You can't have a situation like that. Just too many breakdowns, too passive on the power play, where this team just isn't getting the job done. So that to me is going to be the GOAT of the game. Meanwhile, some news now becoming official. Zach Parise signing with the Colorado Avalanche. So yes, he's back in the NHL. And no, it is not with the New York Islanders. And yeah, it's a little bit of a disappointment in many ways, but you can't 100% blame Parise for changing his mind. Yes, he said May 1st at Getaway Day, I'll either come back to the island or I'm retiring. And then he didn't show up at training camp, and you sort of figured, okay, how much does he really want to come back? He just wants to come back for the the stretch drive and the playoff run, if he wants to come back at all. But really what he did was take a break and determine, hey, do the New York Islanders have what it takes for me to make that run at the Stanley Cup, which I have not won over the course of my career? And that's really the one thing I have left to play for. And look, the Avalanche are 32-14-3. They're in first place in the Central Division. They won the Cup a couple of years ago, and they have a chance of getting Gabriel Landeskog back for the playoffs. You add Parise, that's like 2 trade deadline acquisitions without having to make a trade for the Avalanche. And again, you're seeing one of the better teams in the league. They are well run. They're making these moves, and all they're doing is getting a healthy player back and signing a completely free agent who, can help their team. And, overall, I totally understand it. And so did the Islanders players. Here's what Matthew Barzal had to say about the decision by Zach Parise. He knows his time is ticking, and Colorado is a front runner to win the Cup. So I wish that we had done a better job to allow him to come here. I'm sure if we had won 8 of the games that we probably could have this year, and we were 15, 16, or even 10 points ahead of where we are today, I'm sure he would have been in blue and orange, but he has to make a decision for himself. And, the players not angry. I know I saw on social media and in comments on our YouTube page, some fans angry comparing this to John Tavares. I think there is a few important differences, although I do see some similarities as well. The biggest difference, the Islanders weren't going to get anything if Zach Parise doesn't re-sign with them. Whereas with Tavares, you get to the trade deadline. If Tavares wasn't going to re-sign with the Islanders, they could have traded him at that point for some draft picks or prospects or a player and done it that way and gotten something of value for him. Whereas with Parise, he was already a free agent, and there's no penalty to the Islanders other than not getting Zach Parise back. And to be honest with you, a 39-year-old Zach Parise, while I'm sure he's in shape, do you think Zach Parise is sort of the missing ingredient on this team to get them to be contenders for the Cup? Probably not. And again, he could be a help to the Avalanche, but he's probably a bigger help to the Avalanche than he would be the Islanders. And he certainly has a much better chance of winning with the Avalanche than he does with the Islanders. The Islanders may or may not make the playoffs this year. And we'll see exactly what happens down the stretch, and we'll get to that coming up in our next segment. But overall, I can't blame Zach Parise for thinking he has a better chance at winning the Cup with Colorado than he does with the Islanders, and that is his decision. I wish Zach Parise all the best in Colorado, but I'm not going to lie, I'm disappointed that he's not back with the Islanders. But, do the Islanders really have anybody to blame but themselves under these circumstances? The answer is probably not. We have got more to get to on today's show. We will recap a very rough January, break some things down, and talk about what this team needs to do to get back on track in a very tight Eastern Conference playoff race. Plus, we'll have our Islanders birthday of the day, all that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. And looking forward to the Super Bowl as I do each and every year. And FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W or 2 or even 3. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet or $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. January. January has been a rough month for the New York Islanders. How rough? Well, here we go. For the month of January, the Islanders, who started off in a playoff spot in the Eastern Conference, and for a few moments in late December, were second place in the Metropolitan Division. They went 3-7-3 in 13 games in the month of January. And do you know, in the year of 2024, since we turned the page on the calendar, do you know how many regulation wins the Islanders have in their last 13 games? One regulation win in the entire month of January. Folks, that is just not going to get the job done. One regulation win, and it was on January 4th, a 5-1 victory in Arizona over the Coyotes. Their only other wins of the month, a 4-3 win at home against Toronto and a 3-2 win against Dallas in Patrick Roy's debut. Both of those were overtime wins. You had 3 overtime losses and then 7 losses outright. It is just not good enough. And when you look at the standings right now, yeah, the Islanders are in 4th place in the Metro, but the teams that are behind them in the standings all have substantial games in hand. So here's the deal. Carolina, second place right now in the Metro. They are now 9 points ahead of the Islanders and have a game in hand. Philadelphia is 4 points ahead of the Islanders. The Islanders have a game in hand. Pittsburgh is 1 point behind the Islanders. They have 3 games in hand. New Jersey, 1 point behind the Islanders. New Jersey has 2 games in hand. Washington also 2 games in hand and 1 point behind the Isles. Look, it is not too late at this point for this team to go on a run and get back into the playoffs. But they've got to do something, and they've got to do it soon. And Patrick Roy is going to need to fix this penalty kill and fix the turnovers and the penalties. Those are 3 things. Number 1, this team is taking too many penalties. Their lack of discipline. So many of these penalties are you stop skating, so you have to hold or hook or whatever. Or it could be you're out of position, so you have to hook or hold or trip or whatever. You're just getting lazy and you have to hook or hold or some combination of those things. That has to stop. Those foolish penalties that we see all the time have to be eliminated. And then the penalty kill, man, if you could just get it to average, you have a chance to win a lot of these games that you're losing. And right now, if you look at where this team is, the Islanders' penalty kill is next to last in the league, 31st in the league. Opposing teams scoring at 27.6% of the time when they have the man advantage against the Islanders. That is far too much. Now, Wah has already done a good job of cutting down on the overall number of shots on goal, but it is coming due to with a sacrifice in offense. And you sort of look at things, the Islanders only had 23 shots on goal against the Panthers. That's not quite enough on a game in, game out basis for a team like the Islanders who don't have a lot of great scorers. Against Montreal, the Islanders had a lot more shots. So that game, it wasn't as much of an issue. You had 46 shots. Against Vegas, you ended up with a situation where the Islanders had 42. So some games, there's a sacrifice of offense. Some games, less so. What they're not getting under Patrick Roy, however, is as many goals. 3 goals against Dallas, 2 goals against Vegas, 3 goals against Montreal, 2 goals against Florida. Those 4 and 5 goal games not coming yet. But I'll tell you this, I would take that if the Islanders are able to cut down on the goals against, and if they can clean up the exits from the zone and the penalty kill and the frequency of the penalties, there's a chance they can do just that. And then they've got to get more lines going. There's too many players who are passengers on this team right now. And it just seems like if the Bo Horvat line with Anders Lee and Matthew Barzal is not scoring, and if Brock Nelson isn't scoring on the power play, because at even strength, he and Kyle Palmieri are not really producing very often. If those combinations aren't scoring, then it seems like nobody is, and they have got to get the scoring depth going to be more successful. All right, time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And today is the 72nd birthday of former Islanders winger Billy Harris. Harris, the first ever draft choice in Islanders history, the number 1 overall pick in the 1972 NHL entry draft. And he scored 28 goals as a rookie on a very bad Islanders expansion team that only won 12 out of 78 games. His best season, 32 goals and 70 points in 75-76 with the Islanders, was part of the Butch Goring trade at the deadline in 1980, so did not win a cup with the Isles, despite being a big part of the team's success in the mid to late 70s. After the Kings, played with the Maple Leafs, and then a brief second stint with the Kings before hanging up his skates after the 83-84 season. 897 career NHL regular season games for Harris, 231 goals, 558 points, 394 penalty minutes, add 19 goals and 38 points in 71 playoff games, with all but 12 of those being with the New York Islanders. We go back and look at one of his best moments as an Islander, his first career NHL hat trick, April 6th, 1974 at the Nassau Coliseum. Islanders hosting the Minnesota North Stars. Billy Smith in goal for the Isles. Fern Rivard, the goalie for the North Stars. And in this game, Billy Harris opens the scoring with a power play goal early in the first period from the Potvin brothers, Dennis and Jean. He then ties the game at 2 early in the third period. Dave Hudson and Dennis Potvin with the assists, and then cashes in with an empty netter at the end. Dennis Potvin and the captain, Ed Westfall, with the assist. A hat trick for Billy Harris and a 4-2 win for the New York Islanders. Harris, 3 goals on 4 shots. He was a +2. One of those goals coming on the power play. Dennis Potvin, a goal and 3 assists in this game as well. And Billy Smith made 24 saves to earn the W. So Billy Harris is our Islanders' birthday of the day, and we wish him all the best. A very, very key member of the Islanders teams throughout the 70s up until the trade deadline in 1980. I want to thank everyone for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow on the show, we will discuss some more important issues surrounding this team and what they have to do to improve. Plus, an interesting article in The Athletic talking about which teams have the best chance to win the Cup in the next 5 years. We'll talk about where the Islanders fit in and what they can do to improve those numbers. We've got all that coming up tomorrow, so make sure you join us. Again, we're here every Monday through Friday, even during the All-Star break. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and of course, let's go Islanders.